Now here's an item about the Internet.
What began as Listen Again for radio aficionados is to be extended for TV viewers. The BBC's iPlayer has been given the green light, and ITV has said it will offer many of its shows online. Users can manipulate the programmes for their own use, alongside the many other examples of self-generated content. This morning we'll hear from the man who claims our culture's being demeaned by a mass of ill-informed self-promoting sites, blogcasts, podcasts and internet customs. Andrew Keane is the author of the upcoming book, The Cult of the Amateur.
My problem is that it's resulted in this eruption of worthless, unreliable content. Everything from Wikipedia and MySpace to the blogosphere to individual sites which are often incoherent and anonymous. What it's resulted in is an eruption of something which announces itself as culture, but is really just self-indulgence, what I call digital narcissism, worthless, transitory, which is the reverse of mainstream culture, traditional lasting things like books, films and music.
I mean, some of what you're saying is in the eye of the beholder, but putting that just for the moment to one side.
Eye of the beholder, let me be rude here. You're falling into the trap of this cultural relativism. If that's the case, then the 85-year-old grandmother who's writing recipes for kosher food online has the same value as Shakespeare. And I think we've had these arguments throughout history.
But I certainly we need putting that to one side. In attacking this dilution of culture, as you are, what kind of responses have you generated? How virulent has been the reaction to what you're saying?
Radical virulence. The classic anonymous internet attacks, people putting up digital photos of myself and defacing them. It unleashes this anger, and particularly the anger of the anonymous blogger, the anonymous web commentator.
You're basically saying that the constant blogging and the constant message boards of the internet are debasing comment and knowledge. Now, that has been said before, but why should it matter to the rest who don't really blog, who don't really post things on message boards?
For your listeners who, like myself, who love music, love recorded music, love newspapers, love books, love the movies, people who are willing to pay for their content and who have respect for creative professionals. This explosion of self-generated content on the web, this free content, this what I call digital narcissism, is actually undermining traditional media. Because if you look at mainstream media, all the economic signs are bad. Everything is down. Newspapers in the US are in crisis. The music business is in freefall. In the first 2 months of this year, of 2007, music sales are down 20%. That's absolutely catastrophic from the music industry's point of view. Hollywood is in crisis, laying off people. The book business is petrified of Google's so-called universal library. So if you care about culture, then you should be worried about what's going on.
But also you can have space, can't you, for a new form of communication, for a new form of publishing, for a new form of democracy, really, in allowing the gatekeepers challenged.
In my view, that isn't viable. The reality is that most people don't make very good writers or musicians, just as they don't make good politicians or doctors or any other professional class. The reality of this flattened, as Thomas Friedman calls it, flattened media, is that no one's making any money. In my book, I look at a guy called Guy Kawasaki, who's a well-known Silicon Valley commentator and investor. He's one of the top 50 bloggers in the world. That's out of 70 million bloggers. In 2006, he earned $3,500 from his blog. So the massive majority of media correspondents are not making money and not making a living. And in that sense, then, they become hobbyists. The only way to become a serious commentator is by being paid, because otherwise you can't commit your real resources to it.
Andrew Keane. This all comes as a pioneer in the sharing of information is seeking an online code of conduct. Jimmy Wales is a co-founder of Wikipedia, the online encyclopedia we heard mentioned there. Anyone can draw up definitions, biographies and more for the open use of all. But Mr. Wales drew the wrath of many bloggers and commentators when he recently suggested self-regulation of the torrent of violent threats and sexual abuse that characterises much argument on the web.
I think that a lot of people have misunderstood. You know, they begin thinking about sort of speech police or something like that. And that really isn't what this is about. This is about a general set of moral standards that almost anyone could agree with. And if it's well constructed by the active blogging community to say, well, you know what, actually we do agree that death threats are just right out and other kinds of behavior are really undesirable, then it can start to form some social norms that I think will be healthy.
If you lose this effort to get people on your side with this argument, what's your fear?
To some extent, this is inevitable. As we see more and more people are taking part in participatory culture, we see a whole new wave of people coming in who are not that group of sort of strident young males who love the combat. I think that is a historical phenomenon that won't be with us much longer. Now we're seeing a lot of new communities forming where that kind of behavior is not the norm and not appreciated. We're seeing people who just want to, talk to each other and share information in a peaceful environment. Those people will win out, at least in their own spheres. My fear is that if we continue to have this impression that the internet is inherently or has to be a place of hostility, it's going to slow down the adoption of getting more and more people involved in the global conversation, which I think is